ASEAN way is caring. ASEAN way is sharing. No matter the distance between us, ASEAN still unites as one.
Still holds our hearts tight to keep us fight as one. No harm can defeat us, no pain can frighten us, since we are always one.
Harmony is what we believe in, no one will be left behind. So we can fly as one, blow our love to the sky, since we are always one.
Let's share our spirits to heal the world. Let our consonants speak out loud. Let the light from the east shine through the clouds. ASEAN still unites as one. Let's share our spirits to heal the world. Let our consonants speak out loud. Let the light from the east shine through the clouds. ASEAN still unites as one. Our spirits to heal the world. Let our consonants speak out loud. Let the light from the east shine through the clouds. ASEAN still unites as one. Let's share our spirits to heal the world. Let our consonants speak out loud. Let the light from the east shine
Good morning. Today marks the 54th anniversary of ASEAN. May I take this opportunity to wish the ASEAN Secretary and the 10 member nations a very happy and successful ASEAN Day. On behalf of ASEAN, it is my great pleasure and honor to celebrate this auspicious day with the ASEAN Secretary, the ASEAN community, and especially the youth of ASEAN, who will be the engine power for the future. ASEAN started engaging with ASEAN since 2015. From a humble beginning, ASEAN aims to be a collaboration platform for ASEAN in business, arts, and culture. Our journey continues to bring us fruitful achievements in building the ASEAN community, with strong support from the ASEAN Secretary and many public and private sectors across the region. Also, we are working hand in hand with the 6 ASEAN partners for the greater Asian development. Despite the challenges during this difficult time, we strongly believe in the ASEAN spirit. As our regional anthem said, we dare to dream, we care to share, together for ASEAN. Today, you will witness the youth who have turned their dreams into reality, creating quality communities for ASEAN. They are all here to share their passions and experiences with you. I'm confident that the following discussion and speech from the champion of ASEAN Youth Speech Contest will not only spark your inspiration, but also your confidence in the brighter future. Finally, on this auspicious day of ASEAN, I wish you all, the speakers and all the involving parties, good health with strong spirit to bring greater heights and brighter future to us all. Thank you.
Sawadee ka. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 54th ASEAN Day Celebration. I am Aminta Permpoonwiwat, and I'll be your host today. What a momentous year for ASEAN today, as we step into 54 years of synergy and collaboration. Currently, we are all divided across ASEAN due to the pandemic, which has led the celebration to take place online. Nevertheless, ASEAN has grown from the seed planted right here in Bangkok 54 years ago. And it is evident that when ASEAN stands as one, we are able to overcome any disruptions, including the COVID-19 pandemic. From food security, research and development, and the COVID-19 ASEAN Response Fund, our partnership has shown through. In order to support that, ASEAN was formed with 5 C's in mind, which include conversation, collaboration, community, catalyzing change, and competitiveness. Today, the C ASEAN Forum Youth highlights the first C of conversation under the topic of ASEAN Future, from dreamers to doers. 3 guest speakers will be joining me today. Each and every single one of them have had a dream, a vision. Now, they are not only idealists, but also change makers who are role models and influencers for the next generation of ASEAN youth. So, what is the reason for this? What inspired them to do so? How can you turn your dreams into reality? These are the questions I'll be discussing with our panel from across 3 countries in ASEAN. Our first speaker is from Brunei, Iswandy Ahmad. He is a member of the Legislative Council of Brunei as a person who has achieved distinction. He believes in the power of young leadership and is an expert in capacity building programs for leadership development for young Brunei leaders and is an active advocate in civil society. Among his voluntary social contributions are HIV and AIDS work on awareness and advocacy, youth mentorship and employability among job seekers. He is also the lead trainer at Perspective Insan Academy, a capacity building consultancy. Next, from Indonesia, we have Nikki Clarencia Pertiwi, or Nikki Clara, who is a disability womanpreneur. As a person with physical disability since birth, she has been active in several social enterprises to empower people with disabilities, namely Disable Enterprise, Tenun, and Berdaya Barang. These platforms have empowered more than 1,000 friends with disabilities and formed a community of entrepreneurs with disabilities by providing training, helping them to overcome social problems, and achieve economic empowerment independently. She also actively shares her story to offer hope and encouragement to others who experience similar difficult life situations. And last, but certainly not least, it's a great pleasure to have Muhammad Asyraf bin Abdul Hamid, or Appy, from Malaysia. Appy is passionate about providing equal education for all. He has collaborated with NGOs that share the same vision, and he believes that education is power for youth to bring a positive impact to the community. He is now working as a teacher in SK Sungai Beduan, WP Labuan. With substantial experiences as a real doer in education, he is extremely motivated to be a part of the change, and he is confident that our efforts to provide equal access to education to all can make a difference. So these are the 3 panelists that you will meet today. So stay tuned to hear more about their stories. Again, I am very honored to be your host for the event, and I am currently a student at Patumwan Demonstration School and Thailand's representative to the United Nations Youth for Climate Driving Ambition event in Italy. I founded a youth organization to teach underprivileged students, and I am also the winner of the first ASEAN Youth Speech competition, so I'm very honored that C ASEAN has invited me back to be a moderator for this forum. Now, without further ado, let's begin the forum. So all 3 speakers are here with us now. So good morning, Iswandy, Nikki, and Appy. Now, this session will be divided into 2 parts. The first part will be a 40-minute roundtable conversation with all the panelists. And the second part will be a 10-minute Q&A session from the audience. So if any audience members have any questions for our panelists, please drop them in the comment section in YouTube or Facebook. So now, let's begin asking the questions. I'm sure all of our viewers are wondering more about the work that each of you do. So let's start with Iswandy. So Iswandy, would you mind starting by talking about your work briefly in around 3 minutes?
Great. Thank you, Em. It's good to be here, and happy ASEAN Day to everyone. So I'm a member of Brunei Legislative Council, which is a young parliamentarian. I was appointed in 2017. So my work as a young parliamentarian is to engage the community, especially my constituency, which is the young people, on things that matters to them. But originally, I am from the NGO world. I do HIV and AIDS advocacy and education. So one of our program is actually educating and also advocacy for HIV and AIDS. So in Brunei, we don't have a specific HIV/AIDS education, and this is where we contributed with our HIV/AIDS awareness program for peers and youth. Happy. It's a 2 hours or 1 hour workshop run by young people for young people about issues on matters like HIV and AIDS, sexually transmitted illnesses, and also healthy relationship. So that's in a nutshell about the work I do. But and also on the sidelines, I also run Perspective Intern Academy, which is a capacity building agency, a training agency that provides soft skills and managerial skills for young professionals and people who are looking for jobs. And that has been around for the past 3 years. And in my work, I have engaged with numerous young people all over ASEAN and all over Brunei, and that has bring me to where I am now, engaging with youth and in development work.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think like the work that you're doing that with HIV and AIDS, it's really benefiting a lot of people. So now moving on to Nikki, what was your childhood dream? Like, how did you make that happen, and did that influence you in any way?
Hi everyone. My name is Nikki Clara. I'm coming from Indonesia. I call myself a disability womanpreneur. If you're talking about the dream, maybe it starts when I was 1 years old. 1 years old, I start to use prosthetic leg, and whenever I'm talking about the dream, born as a disability at Indonesia, I must face a kind of a stigma, negative perspective, and then and my parents is become my first support system, and they told me, born as a disability doesn't mean that you cannot have a dream. And that's the moment I start to have a dream. And nowadays I built a for social enterprise that have a mission to empowering person with disability at Indonesia. We start to providing a soft skill, hard skill, and trying to help them to get a proper job so they can be empowering, financially independent. And nowadays we successfully to give more than 5,000 person with disability with several skills. And in this pandemic, we start to build a new ecosystem of disability. We call it as Developreneur. So we start to build many as possible disability who has an entrepreneurships. And this new ecosystem we successfully to build around 200 new entrepreneurs, disability entrepreneurs. So yeah, it's kind of a way to share all of the things with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think your story is very inspiring, and it's completely true that how we grow us and our communities, they definitely shape us into who we are. So now, what about you, Appy? I can't wait to hear your story. So please spend around 3 minutes telling us.
Hi everyone, Selamat Hari ASEAN, Happy ASEAN Day to all. Being a teacher, I always believe in this quote, knowledge is the best gift from God. You know, when I was final year students in Teacher Education Institute, I saw there's a few children that are not going to school because of their identification status, but then I don't know how to solve it until 2019 when I joined YSEALI, and from there I started to grow, learn, collaborated, and started to run project. I started my identity projects back in 2020 with 3 E pillars, which is expose, enhance, and empower, which we want to help and aim to help the undocumented children, marginalized community to be better. Like right now, I am working as a teacher, and it's really tough time, especially for teachers during this COVID-19 pandemic. And yeah, I think it's a very COVID-19 pandemic has not crushed our dreams, but it's actually building a new dreams for all of us to be better and serve our community better. Yeah. Thank you. Back to you.
Yeah, Thank you so much, Appy. Actually, one of your students, I think his name's Valor in 8th grade, he wants to say hi and he says he really supports you right now. Yeah. Okay, so now moving on to the next question. I think that all of your work is very impressive. Each of you have really impacted your community in some way. So now I want to go back to Iswandy. Have you had any challenges or disruptions, maybe throughout your whole journey so far? Anything you want to tell us about?
Coming from a traditionally conservative community, so Brunei is a population of 400,000, so it's not a big population. So technically, the thing that we always tell people, everyone literally knows each other here, or you might be related to someone in Brunei. So we don't talk much about youth leadership in making changes. Well, there is that concept, but the concept is more to young people to be worked on rather than young people to work with. Chiming in like Nikki and Appy working with young people. So that's a concept that is new in Brunei. So this is where intergenerational collaboration is a concept that's needed to be done. Where in other part of the youth movement, so we don't just see the youth power to work in silos, but also about working together with other parts of the community. So it's not just exclusively young people demanding for changes. And also this year, one of the challenges, I think Brunei Darussalam, as everyone knows, is the chair of ASEAN. And it comes at a challenging time where we're facing the COVID-19 pandemic. So as the chair of ASEAN, we bring the theme, we care, we prepare, and we prosper. So the theme, I think it's very suited for today's world of COVID-19. So it aims to underscore the ASEAN's collective pursuit in improving the people's well-being and livelihood, and emphasize for us, all of us in ASEAN, to work together to realize our shared interests, confront original and global challenges of common concern. As Appy said, it's a challenging time for everyone, but that doesn't mean that we should stop achieving our dreams. So we hope to see we thrive, prosper, and secure sustainable development on this one. Again, as I said, it's a trying time for us now, but that doesn't mean our negative impact for our community, be it an economic, health, social, or even a personal level. So hopefully we see these challenges as an opportunity, and I guess the challenges that comes with us now, it's either we view it in two ways. Either we see it as a challenge or we see it as a problem, and I prefer the former. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I would actually like to ask you a follow-up question on that. Since you mentioned the ASEAN Summit and Brunei's chairmanship, would you mind telling us more about what you think you and the Brunei Legislative Council can contribute to this?
Indeed. So in our work, as I guess, I mean, how I wish now it's not the COVID-19, so we can actually travel and visit it in other countries and share over food and visiting places. So I miss Thailand, I miss Indonesia, I miss Malaysia, and there are more countries that I want to visit in ASEAN. But having said that, I work as a young parliamentarian. I'm involved in the ASEAN Interparliamentary Assembly, the IPA General Assembly. So this is where we'll be discussing, if I'm not mistaken, it's at the end of the month. So we'll be talking about issues that impacts people in the region, especially on the parliamentary point of view. So I guess our theme is on digital economy and cybersecurity. So that's high on the agenda on that one. And hopefully we will be becoming more resilient and we're becoming more empowered to face the future post-COVID-19 with our technological advancement and also connectivity in ASEAN and also to the world.
Right, thank you. So I think Iswandy has really shown us the intention of Brunei youth to really engage in ASEAN and also youth leadership. So now moving on to Nikki, like we talked before about all of the challenges and the impact of COVID-19. So how has your experience been with this, Nikki?
Yes, if we already spending like 1.5 years to finish this pandemic COVID-19. I hope it will be finished as soon as possible. But talking about the challenging in terms of disability community, it's quite a big because it's quite really hard at Indonesia to talking about accessibility and digital for person with disability. So when the pandemic COVID-19 facing us in March 2020 in Indonesia, the first thing that I must do is to gather the awareness how to use digital for person with disability. I introduced to them how to use Zoom, how to use Google Meets, and so they can have a new activity, so they can have a new access for them to access education, to access information, sort of like that. But same like Iswandy talked before, it's back to us. It cannot does we see them as a challenging, or does we see them as a problems? As I mentioned to all the community, in this pandemic, we conclude that we must change ourselves to 3C. The first C is a connected. I always talk to my community is in this pandemic, staying or being connected is the first number one, because we stay at home for a long month, and despite being connected, maybe we can become a strange person, a weird person. So being connected is the first thing ever in this pandemic COVID-19. The second one is being creative. The second C is being creative. Despite uncertainty, a situation, being creative, being innovative is the most important things, because some of them is really hard to facing what kind of finish the problem. It's kind of really hard to facing the challenges. But if you are an entrepreneur, if you are an employee, whatever your background is, being creative is a must thing, because staying at home, reading a negative news, losing someone that you love, it's really hard for us to face that. But being creative, being innovative is one way to survive. And the last is collaborations. I always forcing myself, always forcing my community to being collaborative with all of the people, all of the community at Indonesia, or maybe all over Asians, because collaboration is makes us to believe that we as human beings can support each other. So that's the 3C that I always say to my community. No matter how long this pandemic things, no matter uncertainty situation that we must face, as long as we always upgrading ourselves, as long as we always believe to whatever the situation that we have, we can finish all the problems. We can facing all the challenges ahead. Yes, maybe that is it.
Thank you so much. I really understand you and support you really much with how we all have to stay together and work together through the pandemic, and also that those 3Cs were really inspiring. And like Nikki, you also talked about how you had to raise more awareness and teach people to use Zoom and things like that. So now I would like to direct the question to Abby. Like, since you're an elementary school teacher, how have you adapted to the pandemic and things like that? Have you had to teach online?
Okay, thank you. A very good question, actually. And where do I start? To be honest, I'm teaching a B40 community. B40 is bottom 40, which means regular persons that have to living from paycheck to paycheck. So it's very struggling to learn online these days. So, but then COVID-19 for me is an opportunity for not just the learners, for me to grow and to learn. So even though COVID-19 exposed few problems such as access to quality education, where not so many people have the access to handphones, internets, and also laptops. Not so many people have the access here in my place. And also the motivation, because like Nikki and like Iswandy said, we are living for months in and staying in our home. Like motivation to learn is like downgrading for time to time. So because I'm a learner also, so I experience that kind of thing. So this is what we are afraid of, what we call as lost generation. These children, they are like losing the experience of being a student in school. But then what I did was to to combat this problem was I have to be creative with my teachings. I do YouTube's channels, I do TikToks, I do Clubhouse sessions via Telegram, which consumes a fewer data. I produce my own modules. I collaborated with other teachers. I asked them how they are doing online teaching efficiently. And it's even though like many people will say that this is an opportunity for me to learn, due to COVID-19 pandemic, I have expanded my network among teachers, not just in Malaysia. I expand my networks among teachers from all across ASEAN. I ask them how they deal with things and everything. So this is truly for me a blessing in disguise. And yeah, it's a very good time for us to unlearn and relearn and to grow better. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, that's very important for us to keep developing. And I think that all of you, all three of you, have adapted very well to the pandemic and everything like that. And it also shows that we have resilience in ASEAN as a community. Yeah, so now I want to move on to the next question. But before I do that, I would like to remind the audience that they can drop some questions below if you have any questions for any of our panelists. Right, so now onto the questions. So I've actually heard that all of you have been involved with the Young Southeast Asian Leaders Initiative. So could you mind telling us how it maybe benefited your work or things like that? Nikki, would you mind starting?
I start the movement with the disability community in 2017 when I finished my master's degree, and then I start to think as a disability person, maybe this is the time that I want to help another disability community at Indonesia. It's the total of disability at Indonesia is 32 millions, and it's around 12% of the total population in Indonesia. And Wisely helped me a lot to collaborate, to trying to facing what kind of problems that another Asian country facing also in terms of developing disability community, and then I can also implement it at Indonesia. And Wisely make my eyes more opener, because looking at Thailand, there is a lot of role model of disability at Malaysia and Brunei, and also in another country of Asia, Singapore, with their gorgeous accessibility. And I believe that Asians also become the first 10th country who really given access to a person with disability. And I live in Indonesia. I believe I can also implement it, what kind of the movement that has been done at another country in Asia, and also implemented it here. And Wisely helped me to also bring another ideas in terms of advocacy to my governments, to all the stakeholders in here. And start in 2018 when I finished Wisely at US in Chicago. I spent 3 months in a measures person with disability in Chicago, and it brings a lot of projects, a lot of programs, and new ideas and new innovative and I have done at Indonesia. So for everyone who watched this, Wisely is gonna be like a new step in your life to have a new perspective, to have a new horizon, not always talk about your country, but also trying to collaborate with another country in Asia also, and trying to implement it, the positive things, and bring back to your country. Maybe that's the thing.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appy, would you mind sharing your experience too?
I would love to, because Wisely gave me an opportunity to learn. I started joining Wisely back in 2019. Yes, back in 2019. And I started with a Wisely bootcamp. It held in Sabah, Malaysia. And then I go to the Wisely bootcamp in KL, where I met lots of diverse Malaysian change makers that inspired me every day to do better. And then I joined the YSEALI regional workshop, empowering educators in Southeast Asia, where I had the opportunity to collaborate with fellow educators from all across Southeast Asian. It's really inspiring, because not every country, they have different curriculum, different approach. So it's really good to learn from the ASEAN communities, from in related to education. And then also in 2019, I participated in the YSEALI Summit in Phuket. That's where I met Nikki and most of the ASEAN committee. So from there, I was able to speak up about the undocumented children that has no access to education. And because things about the undocumented children, not many people are aware of them. Not many people wanted to speak about them. Not many people wanted to voice about them, especially in this region. But then I took that opportunity to raise an awareness. And then from there, I started to collaborate with an NGO in Semporna, Borneo Comrade. And then YSEALI gave me the opportunity to be in my community. And until today, I think YSEALI has grown very well, and makes like Nikki said, makes our eye open wider about it's not just about our country. It's for the beneficial of our region. If we wanted to make this region a prosperous region, we have to sama-sama together to tackle all these problems and issues arising. Yes.
Thank you so much. We all have to develop together, and I think that YSEALI is a very wonderful way for youth in ASEAN to exchange ideas and also to form connections. Now, going on to Iswandy, do you think that specifically the work that you've done, do you think that what has it contributed to the ASEAN community as a whole?
Sorry, I lost you for a few seconds just now. The connection was unstable. You might repeat the question again?
Sorry, no problem. What has the work that you've done, has it contributed to the building of our ASEAN community as a whole?
Right. So I guess I started a bit earlier from comparing to Nikki and Appy. I started back in 2004 with my HIV and AIDS work. So but it's I guess it and YSEALI, where I was engaged in 2014 on human capital workshop. I guess the work that I do in ASEAN is especially on HIV and AIDS. So in 2011, what happened was there were two interns that was based in Bangkok. So they were based with the Seven Sisters. So so these two friends came together and we met in Bali, if I recall, in 2009. So what happened is they wanted to do a regional network on HIV and AIDS on key affected populations. So these are people living with HIV and AIDS, people using drugs, and those who are affected with HIV and AIDS in the region, for example, drug users and sex workers. So of course, when you're talking about HIV and AIDS, it's a taboo topic. It's not easy to talk about on this one. So what we do is we provide community-based training. So we devise a training that is youth-friendly and at the same time applicable for all countries. So for example, the module that we had is how to engage with policymakers and how to engage with country leaders, for example, on health. So we don't tell them to go out and raise your banners and say we demand change. It might work, but there's a softer diplomacy that we can do. For example, like engaging with stakeholders, with providing evidence, data, and also suggesting policy changes. That can work also. So, for example, I think Nikki mentioned about soft skills. So we teach these young activists about soft skills on how to engage and how to soften the hearts of these policymakers. So the work that can be done in Brunei can be emulated in Indonesia, can be emulated in Bangkok, despite our differences in political, religion, background, economy, and whatnot. So as Appy mentioned, the differences that we have, that doesn't stop us to work together in this sharing of resources. So I guess in unity in diversity, the theme or the tagline that we have in ASEAN is truly echoing here. And I do believe that despite our differences, we can work together and to face the challenges of the future, especially us as young people who are not just the leaders of tomorrow, but also making changes as leaders of today.
Thank you so much. That's very inspiring. I mean, as youth, we do have a lot of things to change. And I think that a lot of people right now, we're actually talking about like this generation gap between maybe the older generation and youth now. And there's a lot of criticism about this problem. Like maybe Iswandy, do you maybe want to elaborate more? And what's your response to that?
Indeed, indeed. So I remember it was only like 5 years ago when we were talking like we were discovering these trainings like how to engage with millennials in the workplace. But nowadays it's not just millennials because millennials are entering their 30s and 40s. Now it's the Gen Z are coming up and becoming the young people who are born in the year 2000 and above. So we've seen a 20-year-old who is making changes as social entrepreneurs, as NGO leaders and student clubs and student associations. So I guess what's most important here are two things. One is mutual respect. Respect goes a long way. So if you respect your elders, the elders need to respect the young people. Of course, you can be different in ideology, you can be different in taste of music, food, or whatnot. So you cannot compare. I mean, maybe when our parents were young, they liked the Beatles, you know, or they like Bon Jovi. But if you talk to a young person, yeah, they like the same music, but it's a different era now. You know, it's a different era. So you don't have to criticize each other, but find things that can unite us. So instead of comparing which music is better, why not we just listen to music that benefits for both? So mutual respect goes a long way. And second is try to understand each other. You know, try to understand each other. Understanding is the key to communication. We can have all these dialogues, we can have all these forums, we can have all these conferences, be it online or offline, be it international, regional, or even national. But if we don't try to understand each other, or at least to tolerate the differences, then we cannot make the communication. So the bridges will be just not even being made, but it's just being burned or being destroyed even from the start of the communication. So those are the two things that I think is important: respect and understanding.
Yeah, I think it can really be summed up with having empathy with all the people around you. Thank you so much. Now, going on to Nikki, so I would like to ask you, how do you think your work has empowered others, whether it be like in the disabled community or just in ASEAN youth as a whole?
Yes. Talking about how my voice can be empowered, I think it is a long process. Whenever I sharing about my story, and then they talk to non-disability community or maybe youth community, talking about entrepreneurs, and then they start to ask about how to start the movement like you, or how to choose the right community for us to give to be empowered, sort of like that. And I start first is start with a little step. I still remember 2017 when I raising the awareness to disability community. I start with 5% with disability. All of them is a deaf person with disability, and then because there is no one who believes about the program, about the mission, about the big picture of the things that I want to do with my team. And then with the 5% who believe to our works, with the 5% who believe whenever together we can do to empower them, that's the moment I start the movement. That's the moment I start my social enterprise. So whenever I talk with the youth who start the business, who start the social enterprise, start with the big step, with the big with the little step, with the big dream. So that's the moment I talk with the youth. And the second things is always believe that whatever you did, or whatever you did, always back to your dream. And I believe that whenever we face the challenging, whatever we face the problem ahead, when we start the social enterprise, we always thought that maybe we cannot do everything, we cannot finish, or we cannot unsolve the problems. But if you back to your dream, when you start to remember about your dream, I think that will become your energy again. That will become the things that why you want to start this movement. And talking about the empowered, I always say to my community, it's a long process. It's not an easy words, but together we can. What IP said, sama-sama, sama-sama in here means together. So making a right support system is also the right terms whenever you want to be empowered together. Because whenever you're down, whenever you don't believe to yourself, trying to finding the right support system. Because when you have the right support system, the support system will support you, will support your back, will trying to motivate you again. So that's the reason why I always start to make a support system in disability community, because I believe there is a lot of mental block in disability in youth, parents, your friends, yourselves, another challenging uncertainty situation. But when you have a support system, when you have the right support system, is the right things to do in this situation. I think trying to finding a right support system is not really hard nowadays, because when we facing the digital things, you can't find a new support system in a Facebook, in an Instagram. I still remember whenever the first thing that I do to find my partner is DM into Instagram. I DM one person that I really want to collaborate with, and I DM her, and I start talking with them in one kind of food court, and then voila, the social enterprise it's began. So never afraid to start everything. What is your dream is, believe that you can do it, and start with a little step with a big dream. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really, really thank you for saying that, because I think that as youth, we are sometimes afraid to take the first step. And by you saying that you take the little step first, that's very inspiring. And also about how we need people who support us, because no matter through the dark times or anything like that, we always need love. We always need support. So that's very awesome. Thank you, Nikki. And now moving on to Appy. So your work with stateless children, I mean, I really support that, and I thank you for that, because here in Thailand, we also have the problem of stateless children. And I want to ask you, like, how do you think your work is important to youth in ASEAN?
Okay, the issues of undocumented or stateless children is not just in Malaysia. I think it's everywhere in this region. So that's why when we decided, me and my team decided to voice out about this matter, I think that was the first step during the YCLA summit to raise the voices, to raise the issues, to raise the awareness about these issues. And then, like I mentioned before, in 2019, I collaborated with Borneo Comrade, an NGO that runs a full-time school for the undocumented children in Sabah. So when I visited them, I think that's my eye open. I conducted a boot camp at that school for 3 weeks. I guess, yes, 3 weeks. I spent my school holidays in that school. Not a single day. Every day I cry because, like, God, it's like I am living in such a comfortable, I'm receiving such a privilege, but there's a certain community, there's a certain children that does not have this access. And that's what kind of like triggered me to work really, really harder and to not stop sharing my vision, sharing the ideas, collaborated with other stakeholders. So I really like what Nikki said about when she started her team. I did kind of the same thing too, I recruited my my friends. Okay, I recruited my friends together with me, my Malaysian friends together with me in Phuket. I talked to them, would you want to be in my team, and let's conduct a project best in my place in Labuan, because I think it's better for me to start and kick off a project here. And then they said yes. And unfortunately, due to COVID-19 pandemic, we cannot start our project as planned because of the risk and everything. And then two of them, because I only contacted two of them, got their opportunity to study abroad, one in Korea and one in Netherlands, pursuing masters. So I think that's something for me is inspiring me to empower lots of youths to chase your dreams. And when talking about dreams, like I really started with just a small step that I think it's very important for us, for all of us. But then my advice is, if you want to conduct it, to run a project, it's okay to fail. Sometimes you are going to fail. Sometimes you are going to burn out. Sometimes you feel like, am I doing this right? It's okay to step back and relax and breathe. Just failure is not the end of your days. It's just like, it's an opportunity for you to learn and be better. Yeah, thank you. I cannot
Thank you so much. Your story is very touching, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us. And also how that sometimes you really do have to fail, because we're just starting out. And as youth, I think it's completely fine for us to not always get things right. Now, we actually have a question from the audience about what's the hardest obstacle you have ever faced limiting youth empowerment, and how did you overcome that? So maybe, Iswandy, would you mind starting answering that question?
I guess I'll share with a short story where I was trained in how to engage with policymakers. I was trained with how to do youth work with HIV and AIDS work. You know, there are modules, you know, there are international organizations, there are NGOs that's helping you with that. But I guess the hardest thing that this was the biggest obstacle to me is the self-doubt. I guess that's the hardest thing that has ever helped. It has ever stopped me on this one. I think everyone has faced it. I think Appy has shared very emotionally on this one, and Nikki also very personally. So these are personal and emotional stories, and I think we can relate to that on a personal level. So when these imposter syndrome kicking in, or when this self-doubt kicking in, this is where I guess the thing that we need to do, as Appy and Nikki mentioned, to look into our support group, to look into our friends, and take a step back on this one. Because at the end of the day, the biggest obstacle will always be yourself. You know, you can always face people, you can always face policy, you can always face obstructions. But if you don't believe in yourself, that's the biggest hardest obstacle that you can face. Nowadays, there's a heightened awareness on mental health, and before this, we don't know how to handle it, despite we have the access to these information and also services. But now, with all this heightened awareness, I guess it's a good time for us to also to take a step back and also restructure our own way of thinking. For those who haven't started, I guess the best advice that I can give you or can share with you on this one, having facing obstacle, is start where you are, use what you have, do what you can, and that's good enough for now for you to continue.
Thank you so much. That's very, very inspiring. And now we actually have another question from the audience. So what can ASEAN do more to support youth leaders across ASEAN? So maybe, Appy, would you mind answering this, since you've worked with ASEAN a lot over the past few years?
What can ASEAN give? I think ASEAN like Aminta mentioned before, ASEAN gave me a platform to raise awareness, to raise my voice. I think if you tune into like this forum, CAF Youth Forum, you are able to find inspiration, especially from exceptional speakers like we have today, Iswandy and Nikki, to learn from them, like to start your own maybe social enterprise or project. If social enterprise is too big, maybe you can start it with a workshop or project. Start small. And there's a lot of opportunities, not just the ASEAN provided. I think the lot of youth empowerment networks provide these days. I think it's a very good way for you to involve and give back to your community, yeah, and build a better country and a better self for you.
Okay, thank you. And that question was actually from Dr. Tongjai, and she asked another question. So I'd like to ask Nikki, what defines the new normal for you?
Defines the new normal for me. Okay, okay. That's maybe it's also a personal thing to me because right now I have a for social enterprise, and all of the team is diverse in Jakarta. It's also in Makassar and Bali. So I have 3 teams, and all of them is a millennials. If I remember, I'm the one who older. I'm the oldest one. Despite all of the members, they're still 20, and the maximum is 25, I believe. And the new normal for me is how can I how can I force myself to do these things? Maybe I can relate it to what Iswandy talking about, how to the challenging of the youth and also the generations. We're talking about the generation Z, or maybe between Z and also the earlier or the latest X, generation X like me. The first thing, I always challenge my teams and also myself to be a creative and innovative. That's the first thing. And the second one, I always support them to do the challenge, to do the challenge words. And then the third ones I appreciate. I think the new normal for me is how to forcing myself to always trying to think out of the box. So that's the reason I cannot show all over this is my workplace. There is a lot of post-it. So I always try to do design thinking every week with my team because I believe in uncertainty situation like this, we always trying to coming with the new fresh idea. Sometimes when you making a social enterprise in this pandemic situation, maybe one term is cannot be fitted with the situation, so you must facing a new ideas. And I think new normal makes me really thinking about my energy management. So whenever, if you still remember when the pandemic's back in March 2020, the energy is really energized in the morning, but when you just stayed home start in the morning until in the evening, you must really think about the energy of yourself. So that's the reason I'm really concerned about my energy management right now. So in the evening, for example, I always start to be relaxed again, watching Korean drama, watching BTS, singing together with my niece and nephew, dancing together, playing Nintendo, sort of like that. And because being sane, being sane is the number one in this situation. Why? Because as a leader, as a youth, facing the negative news, sort of like that, maybe it's really hard for us. But you must really concern about yourself first before you're trying to empowering or before you're trying to talk with another person. So that's the reason maybe the new normal for me is how I'm trying to find a new activity so I can I can still being sane. Maybe that's a new normal for me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So, kind of like what Iswandy said about we have to take care of our mental health, and this is something that we're all very concerned about right now. So now it's coming close to this session, but I just have one last question for all of you to answer. So, do you have anything to tell the youth in ASEAN? Maybe we could start with Iswandy.
Well, my message to everyone and to young people in ASEAN is that we need to be together, because if we were to face challenges, if we were to face adversity, if we were to face changes, we need to be together on this one. I mean, if we go alone, as the old saying goes, if we go alone we can go fast, but if we go together we can go further. I guess that's an old message, that's an old adage that I think everyone needs to adhere to, and that's the strength that we need to be in together as well.
Thank you. And what about you, Appy? What is your answer to this?
My message for ASEAN youth that are watching this currently, all ideas are valid. No matter how big or small your ideas, do it. And number two, it doesn't matter the big or small role you play in being a change maker, it's also valid, because at this crucial time, all of us needs to play our vital role, our important role. We cannot do it alone. We need to be sama-sama. We need to be together to end this pandemic until, I don't know until when, but yeah, I think it's a very good important for you to do and to start your work. Yeah. Back to you.
Thank you. And lastly, Nikki.
That's the thing that I always share in my YouTube, in my Instagram. Limitation is only mindset. So being born as a disability, being born, I don't know, maybe as a Malaysian, Indonesian, Brunei, Singapore, Thailand, or something like that. Limitation is only mindset. So whenever you have thought that you have a limit, you cannot do anything. Always think that whatever your limit is, always think that it's only a mindset. You can solve it, you can face it, because no matter what kind of limit that God give you, that your environment give you, that your challenge, you must face it. You must believe to yourself that you can face it, you can finish that. And always think that finding the support system is the most important things, because it's maybe like a personal things to me, because I can be right now because I'm trying always to find the right support system, the right community, the right partner, the right like Asian, attending a right seminar, workshop, because support system is the right thing. Because in this digital area, you easily to coming with the negative news, negative community, negative things, but finding the right support system is really important things for you. Thank you.
Thank you, all of you. During these difficult times, I think it's very important that we take care of ourselves and also have people who support us. So just to end this session, I'd like to say a few concluding words on kind of the summary of what all of you have said. So I think so far, the trend that we've been talking about is to work with youth, as like Iswandy said, and that's something that we all have to do. And also to be connected, creative, and to collaborate, and to have unity and diversity, to be together, and also for us to support each other, to have our support systems. And most importantly, to start with a small step, but have big dreams, like Nikki said, and that to remember that the only thing that's holding you back right now is self-doubt. And like Appy said, very important is that we need to be sama-sama. Okay, so thank you all of you for being with me today. And I hope that all the messages that we've talked about today inspires all of the youth listening today to not only be doers, but also to be drivers of change. And I also hope that all of this influences all the ASEAN policymakers and practitioners so that we can build our ASEAN community into a stronger and more resilient one. So as this forum is coming to a close, I would like to thank all of our panelists again today, Iswandy, Nikki, and Appy. Thank you so much for joining me. And lastly, I would like to thank ASEAN for this great opportunity for youth all over ASEAN to exchange ideas. And I look forward to seeing all of you at our next forum. And thank you so much. Thank you. Goodbye. Okay, so now to move on to the next section of our discussion today. So the next section is going to be about the 4th ASEAN Youth Speech Contest. And this is actually organized by ASEAN under the topic of From Recovery to Resilience of ASEAN. This flagship youth platform is for our ASEAN youth to discuss the impact of COVID-19 and suggest ways for ASEAN countries, the participants' own country or their specific community to become more resilient against the pandemic and other adversities in the future. So before my duty ends today, I am very honored to introduce the new winner of the ASEAN Youth Speech Contest. From over 100 applications from youth across ASEAN, today we have the champion to showcase her speech, Miss Phatteeya Yongsanguanchai. Phatteeya is a 16-year-old high school student and a strong advocate for youth empowerment and sustainability, with community service, climate action, and law as her passion and expertise. She was selected as a Thai Red Cross youth representative in the Southeast Asia Youth Network and selected as a representative for Thailand to join the United Nations Youth for Climate Driving Ambition in September 2021. She is also the winner of the Innovation for Sustainability competition and the International Youth Law Conference. And she values dedication over talent and believes that youth can bring transformative change to the world. So, ladies and gentlemen, please help me in welcoming Miss Phatteeya.
Greetings to ladies and gentlemen. My name is Grace and I'm from Thailand. Since I was a child, I have lived in a big family where we care and look up to each other. Working from day to night, my family never said it was a burden. But even in times like these, they said it was their duty. And for that reason, I am heartbroken to see my uncles, aunties, brothers and sisters' lives and livelihoods to be at risk due to the virus. After the outbreak of COVID in December of 2019, infected cases in Thailand rose exponentially from 1,000 to 10,000, now to 19,000 infected cases per day. According to Worldometers, Thailand has an accumulation of approximately 650,000 people that have already been infected and another 5,000 deaths in total. And among these overwhelming number of deaths, some died hopeless, not being able to afford basic healthcare from the government or the hospitals, which especially affects the people living in poverty. The poor who lack digital services and have difficulties fulfilling bureaucratic requirements are most likely to be exposed, as they struggle to receive government assistance. To counteract these problems, the government implemented funds for the education sectors and the unemployed, provided gold card schemes for universal healthcare and village health volunteers to help at the community level. In terms of legislation, our government announced a state of emergency, restricting public areas, services, routes, and buildings. But the question is, can we do more to recover and build resilience in the future? And the answer is yes. Indeed, Thailand still lacks resilience planning and development, especially in times of crisis. As we've seen in May, our government struggled to provide relief to low-income communities. In fact, our government did not invest enough financial resources towards social welfare and public health sectors even before the pandemic. Furthermore, a lockdown in September resulted in a controversy over economic growth or preventive measures of the virus, as there were no risk assessments that support these policies. Therefore, this proves that our government still does not have clear post-pandemic actions or recovery plans at the moment. And as a solution, we have to firstly adopt the UNDRR Sendai framework by implementing science policy interfaces, establishing policies and actions that directly correspond with the understanding of pandemic risk. A multi-hazard and multi-sectoral national risk assessments, or the NRA, conducted by scientists, should be integrated into policies and decision-making. Secondly, we need to have an early warning system to not only manage the impact in the aftermath, but also reduce it beforehand. Thirdly, civil society actors have to be prepared and regularly trained for these circumstances, along with business operation structures to be adjusted, both for preparedness. And fourth, there has to be more investments toward the social welfare and the health sectors. And fifth, in order to disseminate and decentralize the efforts towards multiple sectors, we have to adopt the HEDRM, or the Health Emergency Disaster Risk Management. COVID-19 disrupted our country's social and economical aspects, with the poor being the most vulnerable. However, with great crisis comes great opportunity. It's a chance for us to learn from the crisis and become more resilient in the future. Our government have to stand up and advance in resilience planning and development, especially in terms of the 17th SDG goal, partnership. By integrating multi-stakeholders with science and technology, we will not leave anyone behind. Now it is up to us, especially the government, whether we're going to remain stagnant or build back better and stronger even than before. Thank you. ขอบคุณค่ะ
First of all, I would like to congratulate our speech contest winner and thank our ASEAN youth leaders for their courage and for sharing their positivity with all of us on this important day. Despite the difficult time we are currently facing, ASEAN is firmly committed to serve as a platform to connect ASEAN communities together for the betterment of our region. We continue to initiate activities in the areas of sustainability, youth and leadership development, as well as ASEAN art and cultural promotion. I would like to take this opportunity to invite our audience today to tune in to our future activities, especially the ASEAN Traditional Musical Challenge, which will take place later this month, as well as the TSX, the Virtual Expo on Sustainability, which will take place on September 30th. Once again, happy ASEAN Day, stay safe and take care.